What's going on, everybody? So we're getting to my favorite time of year, and of course most people's favorite time of year. It's scrape season. So how do we go about finding that 1% of scrapes that a mature buck will use during daylight? Let's talk about it. And on the same note of these daylight scrapes that we're talking about today, over on Deer Hunter Academy, we've got an ongoing series, Blueprint to Whitetail Success. And my next video going up over there will be locating bucks during the October lull, which we will also dive into, obviously like we're talking about today, scrape hunting, but there's so much more detail that I'm going to get into in that video. So if you're interested in Deer Hunter Academy, be sure to go over there and fire up your 7-day free trial. We appreciate y'all's support. So it's pretty common knowledge that most scrapes really are kind of useless to pay attention to, hunt, run cameras on. Very small percentage of scrapes do we actually want to dive into, pay attention to, and everything else we're just going to walk right past. So for me, we got two different kinds of scrapes. We got a scrape that we're going to collect inventory on, and we got a scrape that we're going to actually hunt. And to be really honest with you, even those scrapes that I'm collecting inventory on, I'm trying to move past those scrapes pretty quickly. The only thing that I really want to know about that scrape that I'm only collecting inventory on, it could be on a field edge, easy to access, right on a walking path, whatever it might be. A scrape that we know is only going to be hit during the nighttime, right? That scrape is only telling me what deer are in the area. I only want to know if there's big enough deer in the area that I want to pursue. And if that's the case, then I'm going to dive into, okay, where's the bedding cover? Where's the thicker locations, the harder to reach locations, the benches and pinch points and so on, that a more mature buck would be more likely to use during daylight. So if I'm going to focus on that scrape, more than likely it'll be kind of a new area, it'll be a new property, something along those lines, or I'm trying to relocate a buck that has kind of shifted out, and if I can get him relocated, then I can dive into more precise camera set. So after I figured out that there's a shooter buck in the area and on that property, and even relocated the deer that I was after, I'm now going to move back to a more precise scrape, something closer to bedding, something that I would be looking more into actually hunting and spending time on that scrape in a tree. And when I go about looking at that, the idea is pretty simple, but it could take a second to actually figure out which scrape that is. So we're looking for a scrape that is extremely close to bedding cover, immediately adjacent to it, or even inside bedding cover. And also there has to be an oak tree there with it, some kind of mass tree. For me, where I typically hunt, it's always an oak. Most of the time it's a big white oak. If I can find that scrape immediately adjacent to bedding cover, which means that they have extremely quick escape routes. And I'm talking, when I mean extremely quick escape routes, I'm not talking 50 yards and they're gone. I'm talking 2 bounds and they're gone. So that 9-point I shot back in 2021, where that scrape was located, where I was hunting a cluster of scrapes immediately adjacent to bedding cover and under a giant producing oak. So like I said, the theory about it is pretty simple. You need bedding cover and a food source, but it might take you a second to actually figure out which scrape is being used the most. And that's just going to take time. It's going to take observation sets. It's going to take, if you can use cameras, figure out which, keep adjusting cameras. If one scrape's kind of cold, you got occasional movement on it, maybe adjust it, right? But typically, there's going to be one location adjacent to that bedding cover that you're going to have a cluster of scrapes on, and that's going to be pretty easy to target. I've said it multiple times in videos past, I always try to hunt a cluster of scrapes. Just an example. Say you've got a bedding thicket, a little bit of a cedar thicket, right? You've got a scrape here on total opposite sides of the bedding cover, and then you've got a cluster of scrapes down in this general area. Those 2 singular scrapes, I might set up curiosity cameras on just to kind of collect information, right? Because finding the hidden movement could be what puts that deer on your wall. But if I had 1 camera to choose and 1 set to choose, I'm going to set down on that cluster of scrapes. More than likely, that cluster of scrapes means that that buck's going to be using it more often, and especially during daylight. Cold front hits, boom, he's using that cluster of scrapes. So if I'm going to be precise, if I'm going to choose my perfect scrape hunting location, it's going to be extremely adjacent or inside bedding cover. Going to be a cluster of scrapes and pretty good size scrapes for the area, and there's going to be a producing oak right there next to it. That's my personal perfect choice. I absolutely love finding those locations, and if you can figure out how to hunt those locations and when to hunt them, you're going to be extremely successful in the long run and every single year on mature bucks. It also means that you can keep moving, right? I like collecting multiple properties, intel on multiple properties, finding those locations, finding those scrapes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep bouncing, figure out which ones are fresh, and then I'm going to hunt it. But I'm only going to hunt it precisely on the next cold front, right? Because it does you no good to blow out those best stands on bad weather days. So make sure you're being smart about how often you get in there and hunt it. Remember, there's a reason that those bucks are there, and the primary reason that they're there is because they feel safe and people are not there. So knowing that, don't be the reason that you run your hunt. So on that note, keep working, keep finding those scrapes immediately adjacent to cover, under an oak, lots of cover in the tree. In the next cold front, you'll kill your biggest buck ever. So thanks for watching, y'all. I hope that answered some of your questions. If you really pay attention to what scrapes you're looking at and dive into the details about why that buck is there, then you can start figuring out which scrape is which and find that 1% of scrapes that that mature buck is going to be using during daylight. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a comment down below. Would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like and subscribe button. See you on the next video.